everyone, it's David Premer here from Cerebral Selling, and what I wanted to do today was give you a quick tip on one of the biggest silent killers in your sales motion. Now, if you've been following the channel, if you've been following my content, you know that I love silent killers. It's this idea of being conscious about what you're doing. Because oftentimes, even the best salespeople will inject motions and tactics into their sales cycles that are actually counterproductive, that do not serve their customers and cause them to be resistant. Now, the way we become more aware of those things is that we put a label to them, we explain them, and then you become conscious of them and you can pick them out in your sales motion. And that is one of those things today. It is a principle known as reactance. And the idea is this: imagine you are at the mall and you're in a clothing store and you're going and you're checking out the clothes in the rack and thumbing through things, and a salesperson comes over and says, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you with that?" You know, you immediately get defensive. You're like, no, I'm just looking. Most of the time, that's what happens, right? We kind of get defensive. No. You know, even if you actually do need help or want help later on, you're going to become defensive. Or how about this? I'm going to throw up a sign here. Has anyone ever seen one of these signs, the wet paint sign? What do you want to do? As soon as you see that wet paint sign, what do you want to do? Just between us, right? You want to touch that wall. You want to see what that wall is all about. I'm not saying you want to press your whole face up against the wall, but you want to touch your finger to that wall. You want to see how wet that paint actually is because someone is telling you not to do it, right? So you immediately become resistant. It's the same thing with signs that say, you know, don't walk on the grass or tell you to do something. You're like, no, I'm going to do whatever the heck I want, right? And this principle of reactance is alive and well in the modern sales cycle. And I'll give you an example. Have you ever got an email from, let's say, a vendor trying to sell you something? Says, "Oh, hey David, I checked out your website. It seems that you sell A, B, and C. My firm does, X, Y, and Z, and we do all these great things. Let's talk about it. We can probably help you. How about we set up a call for next Wednesday at 2:30 p.m." Right? And even if you're free next Wednesday at 2:30 p.m., you immediately become resistant. You're like, no, like why would I automatically agree with what the vendor is forcing upon me, right? It's that strong sense of resistance, right? And so the idea is when we feel people are boxing us into a corner, we become immediately resistant, whether it's setting up a meeting time or trying to enforce a specific next step. We don't like being boxed into a corner. And so the idea is you can circumvent this feeling of reactance in your sales motion by giving customers an out, an option. What's really interesting is they've done research on these things. For example, people asking for money on the street, and they've set up these experiments where they have people who are asking for money on the street. They say, hey, excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am, can I have $1? And they find that when they append that request with, hey, look, but if you don't want to give, it's okay, they actually find an orders of magnitude increase in the compliance rate. Because when people feel pressured, they become immediately resistant. When you give them an out, they are more likely to acquiesce to what you're asking for. And so think about that in your sales motion. If you're asking for, let's say, a meeting, like, hey, I checked out your website, I saw A, B, and C, I thought that you could probably use our services, but hey, you know what? If you're not into a meeting or you don't want to use our services, just let me know. I'm happy to send you all sorts of free content to help you along your way, right? Now, I'm more likely to acquiesce to that request because I don't feel like I'm being boxed in. So there's all sorts of tactics that you can use to circumvent that feeling of reactance, but the best thing you can do is just be mindful. Avoid that silent killer by looking at your tactics and asking yourself, am I actually boxing my clients in? Am I triggering that sense of reactance where they're going to be just automatically resistant to what I'm saying? Or am I giving them a safety valve? Am I giving them a separate option that helps them acquiesce to buy into the next thing that I want them to do or the next way I want to help them? So that's my tip for today. Reactance, be mindful of it. It can be the silent killer, and we'll see you next time.